Inside Out. This was the movie from the 2010s from Pixar that actually probably stood out the most to people. It had a great concept, and honestly, the story and characters in the movie are still memorable today and have a lot of emotional beats that still hit people even to this day. But one thing can all agree on after watching this movie is that a sequel would be perfect. Even the movie at the end was setting up some things that could happen. Riley growing up being a teenager could open up a whole new bag of ideas for a sequel and have so many scenarios that could be really well played out in a movie like this. And so we waited and we got that fake trailer that we all have seen but we agreed to just not talk about. And then we finally got the release date of that it was actually happening in 2024. Now, up to this point, I was excited but also worried. Pixar sequels, honestly, besides Toy Story 2, haven't really been that great expanding upon the original. If anything, it makes you want to go back to the original even more. Toy Story 2 on its own is a good sequel. Cars 2, I don't even have to explain why that's a bad movie. Finding Dory isn't a bad movie, but honestly, it's really just a verbatim, beat for beat of Finding Nemo. It has some good qualities to it. And then Incredibles 2, again, wasn't a bad movie, but there were just aspects of it that just, weren't as great as the original, and Screenslaver is a really forgettable villain, and honestly, the beats that Screenslaver had were just, honestly, retcons of the original movie, so it didn't feel that satisfying. But with Inside Out 2, I had my hopes up. More and more articles kept coming out about how Pixar's team was taking this movie very seriously in regards to its topic. Actually going into puberty through teenage years, and they're gonna try and go in depth with this as possible. So I'm like, okay, this is setting up for a good sequel. And then we got the trailer, and it actually looked good. So as leading up to release, a lot of things about Pixar were going off a little iffy, so Pixar territory was kind of off when coming to this movie. But I finally sat down and watched Inside Out 2, and wow. Guys, this is actually insane, but this might be the perfect Pixar sequel.
Hey, that's pretty good.
I was walking into this thinking, okay, I'm sure this will be good, but I feel like they're gonna mess up something, and that's gonna weigh it down. But that actually didn't happen here. They actually kept the same charm and energy of the first film and only elevated it. This movie had a lot of things going for it with its topic, and the movie handled it really well. In fact, the movie took the topic surprisingly maturely. Not to the point where it's super mature as a film, but it takes it maturely to the point where both adults can extremely relate to it, and children can get a basis level of it. And I wasn't expecting them to go that far with anxiety and all these other emotions, but they did. Every single emotion shined here. One minor problem I had with the first film is that we got a general basis of who the emotions were. We didn't get to spend as much time as you would think with, a movie based around this. But this movie gave everyone a shine, and I think the movie did a really better job with all the emotions, at least the main ones, being together throughout the entire movie and not being split up. And to get on with the other emotions, anxiety, ennui, envy, and embarrassment, they all shined in their own ways here. Anxiety really did steal the show. I really did like her character, and I think their whole dynamic with this plotline worked really well. Everyone had a showing of emotion with this movie, and it was done really well. I'd say that also with the jokes in this movie, they were a lot more clever. I love what Inside Out does, being clever with certain things. They had the sarcasm, that was shown in the trailers, but that was done really well. They had something called the brainstorm, which obviously, that was also done really well creatively. And there was a lot of aspects of Riley's mind that weren't explored in the first film that were really well done here. I'm sure everyone's seen this scene, where we have a lot of Riley's stored thoughts that never should be revealed, like how she had this crush on this video game character. Glimbley. Oh, wait, no, not him. Wait. Lance, that was his name. And honestly, there was a lot of creative ideas there too. There was even this character that was kind of based off of like Dora, and he was 2D animated, which is nice to see. You don't see that nowadays. And his moments were actually very funny. And honestly, the running joke kept going throughout the movie, and it worked really well. That was very well done. And all those characters in there were done really well. And the movie was well paced. Yay! With its runtime, the movie was really well done, and there was a lot of new ideas thrown in here. Like the whole idea of Riley's beliefs are thrown in here, and that progresses throughout the entire movie, and it's really well done, and really surprising on an emotional level at the end of the movie. Like I said, there's a lot more emotional beats in this movie that a lot of previous Pixar movies from this past decade just haven't hit. A lot of the classics do hit there, but this felt like a more upbringing to what Pixar used to be. I'm not saying you're gonna bawl your eyes out, but there's some moments in the film where it kinda does get close to getting to that point. The parents are kinda sidelined here, but honestly, not too harshly, but it makes sense. This is mainly focusing on Riley growing and going through puberty, so it makes sense to not really involve them that much. But a lot of the newer characters in this film were really well done. Honestly, it's just me right now, but honestly, it feels like we spend a lot more time with Riley in this film than we did with the first film. The first film, we had our moments with Riley, but I'm pretty sure like 80% of the runtime was obviously in the mind of Riley, which makes sense for a movie like this. But I would say that now our time within her head is about 70% now. There's a 30% of Riley's scenes that we get in this movie, and it's way slowed down than the first movie. There was a lot of scenes where we barely get to see dialogue, and it just presses the button of the emotion. And we don't really see Riley, just having a general conversation without any of the emotions pressing any buttons. And that was also well done here. A lot of people's complaints, really only complaints from the first movie, is that it felt like Riley was sort of like a robot, and I kind of disagree on that aspect. I feel like she was her own person in that film. But with this film, you get a lot more of the emotions not really engaging with anything until it's really necessary for them to engage, and you really see that with this movie. Honestly, the really only thing that I walked out of this film thinking, okay, well, I feel like this could have been expanded more. The whole topic of going through puberty and emotions changing, they took it as far as, you could go with a movie like this, but I feel like they could have taken it a little farther. But then again, it would have maybe made the movie too much. But they took it to an extent where I was wanting a little bit more. But they took a really good step with this film of where they could go. And really, that's about it. Pixar has really stepped up their game with this film. I truly feel that Inside Out 2 is an amazing sequel that, honestly, I wasn't expecting Pixar to drop a sequel that I really just didn't have a lot of problems with. Which is a good stepping point, but Pixar's kind of going a little iffy on this. But Inside Out seems like it's going to have an amazing opening, possibly the biggest opening of the year, which makes sense. Inside Out is a very popular movie from the 2010s, and a lot of people are grown up now and relate a lot more to this movie. So it's going to attract a large crowd, and I had a large crowd with this movie. Inside Out 2 really is going to hit with audiences here. A lot more than it's done with previous movies. Like, these scenarios, may not all of them, but a lot of people have come close to some sorts of these scenarios. And, they can feel in this moment. You can go, oh man, this sucks, or, oh no, don't do that. And it works really well. And I can tell Pixar did their homework with, portraying this as best as possible and also modernly possible. No, there's no modern day jokes put in here, but I'd say the movie was at its best with its creativity, its jokes, its emotions. It was really well crafted, as honestly, A Pixar classic. I could see this as being a well-regarded sequel, and I'm not joking. Go out and see this movie. This is the first movie, finally, of the year that I can say, honestly, you don't even have to be a huge fan of Pixar. You'll get enjoyment out of this movie. If you have some general knowledge of the first film, you'll be fine. This movie you will really enjoy. It's not a movie I'd say wait till it comes out on streaming or whatever. Go out and see this movie. And it's not going to be on digital or streaming for a while. This movie's going to be in theaters for 100 days, which is the entire summer. So you're not getting this movie until September. So I extremely recommend watching Inside Out 2. So far, on an emotional level and just on all around as a film, so far, in my book, one of the best animated films so far. Garfield and Kung Fu Panda are just, there right now. Inside Out 2 actually raised the bar from what we've been getting this year. Not that there was many bars to raise from, but I think they did an amazing job with this film. If you've seen Inside Out 2 already, what did you think of it? Let me know down in the comments, and if you haven't seen it, make sure to go check it out. And I'm sure all smooth sailing from here. Nothing crazy coming out next week, right? Right.